Hello, beautiful people. How are all of you doing today? Did you get arrested? What the f does that mean? Exclamation mark allegation. You're not saying yes or no. You're right. I'm not saying either of those things. Can you address those allegations? What is this gonna be? A Rickroll or what? This content isn't available. That's crazy.
What are the top 10 most influential characters?
Okay, I say this every time I boot up a Jello video, but like, why is he so good at selecting the worst Genshin soundtrack songs as his background music? Like, the musical quality in Genshin is so high, you would not expect so if you only hear that music from Jello's video. It's crazy, man.
The character that defined the meta for the game at launch and for most of the first year is absolutely Venti. Content in the game. Bennett, Xingqiu, and Xiangling are my next picks for meta-defining characters. An unbelievable.
Bennett at number 9? Don't know about that. But if you're talking about National at number 9, I could, like, sure, that's fair.
Snapshot Bennett's buff, meaning even from off-field, she can benefit from the attack. Her large energy release was actually recommended by most content creators to be a skip. They said if you have Venti, if you have Sucrose, that's all you need.
I don't think it was. I don't think many, even if people said that Kazuha wasn't as good as Venti, people weren't saying you should skip him. Like, how often do you hear content creators say you should skip a character in 1.x? Like, never, basically. Like, it was basically just Release Zhongli that got that verdict. Simone Kim, bro, I forgot that guy existed, man. Holy fuck.
Two things made him irreplaceable. Number one, the type of grouping that he did. The stronger suction than Venti, while not as big of a radius, and the suction directly to you just had
It's not stronger suction. What is... It's higher poise damage? I mean, yeah, but that's not suction.
Of course.
Chat, has enough time passed? Is it acceptable for me to say that Sucrose was always better than Kazuha in International now? Are people gonna get angry if I say that? But the double swirl, you can double swirl with Sucrose too. You just suck at the game. Sucrose was easier to double swirl with. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier, but it's a different thing, right? The double swirl setups are different with Sucrose.
And on we go. He took a little
swirl instead.
People were not hitting all.
I remember non-Nahida Hyperbloom era. It was so fun. Accidentally exploding DMC ult with Pyro. Yeah.
This one is completely unconditional, which is absolutely huge and changed the game and made building crit DPSs more similar to building Hyperbloom DPSs, where you don't need to min-max the stats as much to get a floor that can defeat the enemies. And that's one of the reasons why Novelette felt so strong for most players, because...
What? What is Ro yapping about? I guess he meant that you can have a shitty build and still clear. I mean, that has nothing to do with the fact that it gives crit. It's just because the set is overall stronger. It doesn't change the dynamic of like return on investment in building your characters in the same way that Hyperbloom has a different dynamic. Like, if instead of giving 36 crit rate, it gave, I don't know, like 70 damage percent or some shit, it would have had the exact same effect. It's just because the characters that use it were better. Like, that's why it was easier to get to the damage breakpoints. And even that, it wasn't easier to get to the damage breakpoints, but like, I don't know.
6 free crit rate, and
it's easier to be satisfied with a pleasant looking crit ratio. But just because you're satisfied with a pleasant looking crit ratio doesn't mean that your build is better. It doesn't mean you're closer to a properly invested character. This is kind of like the child hydro damage ascension stat. I remember at some point some people were like, I wish child had crit ascension stat instead. Because his teams didn't have a lot of damage percent and his artifact set also didn't give him a lot of damage percent and he has no damage percent in his kit. Hydro damage ascension actually gave him more damage than crit ascension would have. But it's less pleasant on the eye because you don't have a big crit ratio. Free crit rate is massive for the average player. No. Free crit rate is massive for people that are going out of their way to not build crit on their characters. That's it. Like, yeah. For people that just want to have the highest crit damage number possible and that don't care about crit rate in their substats, forcing a bunch of extra crit rate through the artifact giving crit rate instead of damage percent makes that crit damage maximization meaningful. But like, that's not average player behavior, that's stupid idiot behavior. Like, average player is stupid. They're not as stupid as you're making them out to be. People that actually want their characters to deal more damage and actually care about that, if they're building crit damage, they'll also build crit rate. Like, yeah, they might get fucking baited by someone telling them you should never build above 70% crit rate. Like, they might listen to a stupid content creator that tells them that. But even then, like, that's not that big of a problem.
And again, similar to Novelette, she raised the floor. Not only did she enable the Marchese Hunter artifact set for basically any DPS, making them much easier to build, not only did she provide Hydro application, the bet.
Like, they're not easier to build, they're actually harder to build. The set is better, so it's a buff, but it also makes them harder to build, not easier.
I would say have always been power creep. There has always been power creep at Genshin, but it was specifically that.
By the way, chat, do you guys want to know why it makes sense thematically or like design-wise that the lunar reactions don't scale with damage percent? Because the thing that's the way that Furina is balanced, right? She has relatively inconsistent and relatively slow hydro application compared to the other off-field hydro appliers in order to justify the bigger upsides she provides to the team, right? But with the lunar reactions, they basically went for stuff that doesn't really rely on the speed of your hydro app. So that downside of Furina wouldn't have mattered for lunar reactions, and they were like, well, we don't want this character to not have that downside be relevant. Fuck Furina. And honestly, they're pretty based for that. Furina was already mid in Natlan, though. I mean, yeah, but that's just because Furina wouldn't see a place in the... Like, if the lunar reactions scaled with damage percent, Furina wouldn't see a place in those teams if she wasn't a Hydro, right? Like, you would want to use Furina not just because of the buff, mainly because she fulfills the elemental requirement. When you look at the Natlan characters, they don't have that elemental requirement for Hydro. So you just have things that do more. It
was power creep. It was slowly, here and there, one after the other, levels, you know, and not always up. Sometimes it's up and down. You know, Cleave bit better than Diluc. You know, Ganyu better than Chongyun. Hu Tao bit better than Cleave. You know, Eula better than Rosaria.
I don't know about that one, Chief.
Physical. You know, Ayaka bit better than Ganyu. Miko, Ayato.
Raiden worse than Fischl.
Not
worse than Fischl. Ayato worse than Singto.
We'll say that's debatable. You know, it's creep. We're getting better. Alhaitham, he's the best DPS in the game, but it wasn't that far ahead of other stuff. Linny.
Surely. Why do so many people think Alhaitham was the best DPS in the game from his release to Navidad? Because if you restrict things to characters that are... If you restrict team building to characters that have a dedicated, quote-unquote, DPS character that is spending the majority of the field time and doing more damage than the others, I think it's reasonable to say that Alhaitham was the best DPS at that point. It's just that Alhaitham teams were worse than the teams that did not fulfill those requirements. Alhaitham was worse than Nahida. Alhaitham was worse than National. Linny wasn't out when Alhaitham came out. Hu Tao was worse than Changling, man. What the fuck do you want me to say? God!
And sure, Melt can be a little cringe. A lot of people are finding that out with the DPS dummy, that melting is a bit harder than they thought, myself included. But even when I miss the melts,
I like the myself included.
My charge attacks. Would hope that my favorite character would end up on this list. It's kind of in a negative.
Isn't his favorite character Klein, or is it someone else?
Way. My favorite character is Skirk, and she starting in
it used to be Klein, but then he played her.
This seems to be the direction that Genshin is going in the future, with Varka possibly needing Nicole that badly. He needs Durin really badly. Varka.
Surely Varka's not a bad character. He just needs Nicole, and we don't have Nicole yet, so we don't know. Varka will not be tier 5. Varka will be tier 4. Okay, trust me.
Seems influential characters of all time. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you think deserved to be on the list and who didn't. Please subscribe down below, and if you don't want to do that, that is.
I think Furina doesn't deserve to be on the list, not because it doesn't make sense for her to be there, just because I don't think she deserves good things. Classic women hater. I don't hate women. I just hate that one. Is she fucking stupid? That's not Zhongli. What am I doing? I was waiting for him to shield up and shit, but that's not the right character. Stupid Oprichniki. Wasn't Inefa better on that side than Colombina? Yeah, but I have Zabai, so I often play Colombina without Inefa. And then I want to have her on Obeyed. And I don't want to have to change my sets all the time. So I'd rather just have one set that stays on. But yeah, I think I'm better off just farming Serenade. Try to get an improvement there instead. Because, like, this is so bad. Why are you on Serenade on Inefa? It's like I shouldn't even fucking say anything. I literally just explained why. Like, that's literally the last thing I did. You could not have missed it. I sincerely apologize, Mr. Handsome. Is double up 8 on Binefa bad? It's it's good if you have someone else on Serenade, but not if that it costs you the Serenade set. Serenade set is always worth having on your on those teams. Why don't you just use artifact presets then? True, I hadn't thought about that.